Stationery. Have you ever stolen, Peter? Have you ever stolen stationery from Parliament?
It depends what you mean by stolen. Have I taken stuff to use outside the place? Yes, mainly my own letterhead. But we never got pens and things. I had to provide my own. So, but you know, I think most people would regard that as a bit of a fair cop.
So, yeah, I've taken highlighters and pens home from work.
Yeah.
From MediaWorks.
The thing that gets me though is
that is stealing. I didn't bring the bag.
But when people put logos on pens and things, what do they expect? They're a marketing tool. Aren't you supposed to take them and spread them around?
Well, that's a good point, actually. That would be my defence, wouldn't it? I thought this was a marketing tool. What on earth, even though I've taken it home and thrown it under my bed, it will never see the light of day again. But yeah, I see what you're saying. It's a great defence, actually, Peter. I'm going to use that. Anyway, 30% of us think that it is A-OK to, 1, take stationery home, and 2, check Facebook and other personal internet sites on your work computer while you're supposed to be working. Which is fascinating. Also, making personal calls considered the most acceptable with 61% approval. I guess it depends what it's for. This is according to an Institute of Business Ethics survey right here in New Zealand. And joining us on the phone now is the employment lawyer, Max Whitehead. Hi, Max. Hi, Max.
How you doing, Ryan?
Yeah, good, thank you. Could you get in trouble for stealing a pen from work?
Absolutely. Fireable offence, really, if you've been provided with previous warnings or been made very, very clearly it's unacceptable. So, I think Peter Dunn's probably looking for termination of his job, but unfortunately we can't sack him.
But isn't there a common sense factor in here, Max?
Yes, there is, and that's how it's got to be applied. I mean, if the courts looked at this, first off they'll say, well, okay, what's your policy? What did the employee know? And if it's been made clear, well, then it's very clear, black and white, and they would be justified to even go to dismissal if necessary. My advice to an employer in that situation is probably go to a warning or even a final warning. But if it's something they've done, as Peter Dunn does, 30% of the time just helping himself, and assumed it was right, then it's opportunity for the employer to say, hey, this is not acceptable, and to tell the rest of the staff, hey, don't take anything home.
I'm interested in Max, and the other stats they've got in here. 15% of us think it's okay to take company petrol for personal mileage. 13% say it's okay to fake an illness to take a day off work. I would have thought petrol, that's a far more serious offence. I mean, particularly with the price the way it is.
Oh, absolutely. Petrol is, but even time, stealing the employer's time, sitting at your desk doing texts, people don't realise how long they actually do spend doing the odd text. That's an offence as well, and it could get you ultimately dismissal, but certainly get you into trouble. An employer has a right of saying no. In supermarkets, Ryan, every staff member is told, you touch a peanut, you take a peanut out of here or an apple, you will be dismissed. They've made that very bluntly clear.
Really?
And through my years of service in this sort of work, many of employees have lost their job in supermarkets for actually taking produce home or eating it out the back or anything like that.
I suppose as an employer, you've got to protect your assets, right? I mean, that's...
Well, the poor supermarkets don't make much. They only make $15-20 million a year, but putting that aside, they do have a right. And, of course, they're greatly exposed if all the staff start helping themselves. It becomes because if family come in and they need something to eat or a drink, or look, just help yourself to a can of Coke, no problems at all. Well, the employer, after a period of time, certainly is going downhill.
But isn't that the point you made it before, Max, that the employer's got to make his or her expectations abundantly clear of the employee, and if the employee doesn't comply, then fair enough. But I've heard references to people in orchards, for instance, saying that they don't mind if the people picking the apples eat some of the fruit. So isn't it sort of horses for courses?
Yes, and it's common sense as well. So common sense comes into it. If you helped yourself to you worked in a lawnmower business and took home a lawnmower because you thought you needed one at home, I mean, that's reasonable reason to give someone dismissal. But helping yourself to something minor and you think it's frivolous, then, and I'm guilty. I used to work as a motor mechanic years ago and help myself to gaskets and even the odd clamp for my exhaust that used to fall off. Those things, really, I should have been disciplined for that. And and told to go home. You know, Peter, I think this is interesting you're there because it's in our society we should have more common sense than less laws. And that we have the courts to govern that, but unfortunately we're getting more and more prescriptive in laws, and people need to be told. But the courts also take that into consideration. If it's reasonable that a worker should have known they weren't allowed to take, for example, a lawnmower home, then they will actually exercise, that's immediate dismissal.
But Max, isn't that because we are becoming more litigious, and with the help of lawyers like yourself, we are taking more and more cases to court and testing things, and therefore Parliament needs to respond by being more prescriptive?
Well, yeah, and by the way, I'm an advocate, not a lawyer, but just getting back to it, your point is very, very valid. We are, as a society, becoming more and more... Look, the amendments came out yesterday, the Employment Relations Act and Amendment Bill, and the prescriptive additions they put in there, and I can understand why they put them in there, but we've got to stop that because the law then gets miles too complicated. I've got volumes here that every small employer should understand, and there would be thousands of pages of law that every employer has to know in order to run their business. Well, it's impossible.
Crazy.
Yeah, how often do cases like this arise? I mean, the lawnmower and above stealing cases is fairly obvious, but what about the smaller end of the scale? Do they actually get to the point of people being disciplined, dismissed, or is this just sort of the legal technicality people should be aware of?
Well, most employers will issue warnings initially, so they don't get into the legal arena really until then. And then if there's been a first warning, second warning, third warning, and the employee's been dismissed, even they don't get there because by that time the employee goes, hey, fair cop, I knew. I had a letter from my boss. So not often it does get there, but it's been well dealt with over many, many cases, Peter. There's clear precedents set in the courts in regards to this matter.
Well, we've all been warned.
We have been indeed. Max Whitehead, Employment Law Advisor. Thanks so much for your time, Max. Great to have you on the show. As always, 16